Okay, this is Eric Johnson with The Brand.
And Aaron Thigpen, The Source.
Aaron, today's topic is going to be, how do players get in front of the right people at the right time? And what is kind of like the system to kind of acquire the next level of play? You've got the 7th, 8th grade baseball, you've got high school baseball, and then guys are aspiring to get into college and also to get into professional baseball. So to understand that, we talk about the USA Baseball player system and all the programs they have to offer so young student athletes can get to that next level. And it is a system. There's a lot of events, a lot of different ways for young people to get in front of the right people at certain times.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's one of the most frequent questions that I get from parents who haven't played sports before, and or maybe they haven't been involved in baseball, and they're trying to figure out what are the organizations that I really need to be involved with so that my athlete can be on the right trajectory to college or high school or whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of people just kind of flounder around or follow the herd and don't really have a plan and don't really know what to expect and what they should get out of each level of baseball. And I think that's important because, again, a lot of these athletes at some point find themselves wanting, generally at the high school level, and they've been saying, hey, my son, he's been playing Little League for the last 7 years, and then he tries out for that freshman team, and his skill set is well below everyone else. And yet, here was the Little League All-Star,
right?
Maybe he was on some kind of quasi, in quotes, travel team,
right?
And they find out that they're just not ready.
Yeah, it's funny. The trajectory of how went from Little League to travel ball has really changed. Now from travel ball to the next level to get to college or professional baseball, it's changed. So it was Little League, and then it was travel ball. Now you got travel ball that has AA, AAA majors, okay? And everybody said, well, I got to be a majors player. And then you're a majors player, but they're finding out that's not enough now. Where do I go now? Well, one of the entities or ways that you can get in front of people is through the USA Baseball brand or model they have. And they have several different arenas. One is National Team Identification Series, also known as NTIS. And this is where they have regions across the whole United States, and players can try out locally. We call those local sectional events, where players go and get in front of a small section. There's one in the Bay Area, there's one in Sacramento, there's one down in the South Bay in San Jose, there's one out in Fresno, Modesto, for California. But the California brand is really in the Northwest. I mean, I'm the scouting director, and Jason Sakani is the regional director for the Northwest. We're trying to find players in 7 states in the western part of our country. So in each of these 7 states, there is a sectional where players go and they get identified. They get the analytics. The same stuff that you and I have been doing for over 15 to 20 years, Aaron, is they get these analytics. They get a running time, they get a shuttle time, they get how hard you're throwing velocity-wise, a ground ball evaluation, a pop fly evaluation, a hitting exit velocity, and a subjective swing analysis of the player. So they get this at the sectional level. From the sectional level, then you get these players, the best players, and then it becomes more of a prospect series in that section. So you get the best players, you try to get them in one place in, say, like California and Northern California, and we have a prospect game. From there, we say, okay, here are the top guys in California. And then you can say, these are the top guys in Washington. These are the top guys here in Idaho. And you do that for each of the 7 states, and that becomes our Northwest regional team that represents our region back in North Carolina to get in front of the USA Baseball National Team evaluators that say, hey, that guy's good, and we want to pick him for our national team.
Right.
Or a college is there and says, hey, Coach EJ, I like that guy, you know? Can you tell me more about him? I like the way he plays.
So, one, how would someone get involved in that? And then two, are there some other parallel routes that athletes can take? Because obviously that's going to be a certain pool of athletes, and
Absolutely.
if you don't make the cut on that, where are there some other outlets that an athlete might find that same sort of pathway or something that's parallel to it?
Well, the neat thing here, from a sectional standpoint, you can go to the northwestntis.com website, and you can sign up anywhere. It's inclusive. Everybody's invited if you like to try out and get an initial evaluation. So that's pretty easy to find those. They're all set up all over the 7 states where you can go in and do that. So that's neat. If a player gets in that and he does that, there's so many different offshoots. Like, for instance, there might be people there that see these players and they say, listen, you know, it might be a travel ball coach somewhere on another team, and just a parent of the player and says, you know what, are you looking for a place to play? You know, we're just there for USA Baseball.
Right.
We're trying to find the best players, but there are people that watch these kids work out, and they might get an opportunity to go play on another club ball team or a travel ball team that could give them more exposure at a national tournament in a different entity outside of the brand.
Now, would someone affiliated with that sort of event be a little bit more, I guess, hard to say, but maybe vetted in terms of, you know, playing for some of those sorts of teams and organizations than, you know, maybe just your typical travel ball team? Because again, you have that's a broad term now. I remember when I first started performance training with baseball players 25 years ago, there's probably 3 travel ball teams in, you know, in this area, or even in California. And now there's been a proliferation of travel ball teams, or teams using that term, and I think it's gotten watered down quite a bit. And so how do you qualify those sorts of teams and make sure that you're in the right organization? And maybe that's a whole separate conversation topic, but it just kind of can give some quick pointers on
Absolutely.
how parents might navigate that.
Well, the neat thing about, you know, being independent and really working for USA Baseball is that's what we're trying to find our national team players. So parents ask us, you know, hey, EJ, or they may ask Jason, or some of the sectional people or people that are doing a lot of these prospect games, they go, you know, what's a good organization? And I might say, I recommend this organization. They're in your area. They have a good history of training and development. They understand what they're trying to do to get players to the next level. And people ask that all the time. You know, they may not want to play for, you know, my brand, EJ Sports, but that's all right because they may be, you know, 2 hours from here.
Right.
And they can't. It's too much of a commute. But I recommend, like, hey, this is a really solid organization that does a good job. They've had a national team type player. They've had a trajectory of having really elite high school and collegiate type athletes. And so that's what we do. Not only we're representing this USA Baseball brand, but we're also helping the parent and helping them navigate what we need to do to get our players in front of people, or trying to develop them so they have the ability to get to that next level. And I think that's the key right there, is that a lot of parents don't really understand that playing field. Some of them haven't played the sport before, or understand what's really going on. So they ask our professional advice about, you know, what do you think about, how do I do this? And that's why they ask you, Aaron, about what you know about this industry and what you do in performance training that can help those players get to the next level.
And so how does showcasing and all of that fit into this, or really does it? I mean, again, it seems to me they're almost kind of doing the same thing, but on a much smaller scale. And I guess the talent base could just be
right
all over the place.
It sure can. I'll tell you this: when we get to that point to where we get into the prospect games, because basically we're trying to get the best players there, and when you get there, then people want to come and watch. If myself or Jason calls all the colleges in the area and say, we're having the prospect games for these guys that are 15 and 16 or 14, they're going to want to come out and watch these kids play. And I think that's important. Now, when you say prospect series or you say showcasing, that's a key word, showcasing. Every showcase is not the best, because showcasing could be like, okay, there's a showcase over here and everybody signs up for it. But who's going to be there? Number one, who's going to be there? Two, what are you getting? What's the value of a showcase if you're not ready? You want to showcase your player when they're ready.
And we've talked about that on the previous podcast.
And we have. So, when you get into like that prospect series game where you're trying to get back to North Carolina to represent the region, then people are like, I want to go watch these kids play. And then as a player and parent, you want to aspire to get to that, because you know what? The cost is minimal. It's not where you're paying $600, $700, $8,000 for a day or two. This is a process. You've got this sectional fee, and then it's the same fee. That $150 is covering everything. So it's not like you're paying something on top of that. And with this kind of prospect game thing we have, it's a full day. It's 4 hours, 5 hours of batting practice, infield, evaluations, analytics, and a game. And you're getting a lot of at-bats. As we've run this, especially this past 2 years, my goal as writing the agenda for the day is to give every player the opportunity to get as many bats as possible, and that's been 4 to 6 usually. And during that one game, and to give them enough fly balls, ground balls, mound repetitions, throws to second if they're a catcher, running, all that, give them all of that in a day, so when they leave there, there's value. Not, I got a scholarship value, but I've got these great numbers. I've got this great experience of playing against better ball players. And it goes back to that same model that you and I have always talked about. What do you get out of the value of a showcase? It's not just, okay, the value is, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going. Or this is great because I got in front of somebody that could really help me attain my goal. Or I got information, which you and I know is powerful. Information. And that's what you get when you're in this USA Baseball kind of model. And when you talk about showcasing, I think that's a good way to showcase talent at a nominal cost. It's not some expensive, cost. This is something that is, people can afford, and there's value in it.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, it sounds like that's the gold standard in terms of vetting and evaluating athletes, and I think that's something that the athlete should aspire to, more so than just kind of the whole shotgun approach of going over to this arbitrary showcase and going over to that arbitrary showcase, and really just saying, hey, I'm going to commit to trying to be this sort of player by these standards. Well, it's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think it's valuable, Aaron, and the reason why, and it goes back to this, I think, we're all trying to figure out how to navigate our young athlete in any sport. We are. And we want to find what's the best value, number one, and two, what are we getting out of it? Value is interesting. When I say value, I don't put a dollar and cent sign on it. Value is what you're getting out of it, what you're learning, your goals going forward, and then you can put a value on price and see if what's the best way for me to kind of move towards this trajectory of getting to the next level. And I think this is one of them, because once you get into that NTIS, National Team Identification Series, there are so many other programs. You got the Prospect Series for USA Baseball, you got the Player Development series for the players, and you get into these models, and you get and again, it goes back to value and cost. They're not super expensive, and it makes sense to go and play against better players. And that's one thing I think they have done a good job with at USA Baseball is play against better players.
Right.
Try to find where that's at. Because sometimes you go to a showcase and it's not the case. They're just trying to fill up. I got 80 spots. Let's fill up the first 80 spots.
Yeah.
Without really prospecting the talent there and figuring that out.
And that's key. And I think you should say that again, because a lot of people spend a lot of money blindly on these events. And just like you said, they don't prospect the talent that's coming in, and you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who you're going to be playing against. And then you find yourself upset that you spent $600-700 on a weekend and you're playing against subpar talent.
You are, and then what happens is that college coach or that evaluator comes in and says, I'm not going to this event again.
Yeah.
It wasn't what it was put up to be. Mm-hmm. And they stop coming. But you don't know that. That's behind the scene action.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, you got to prospect that out. You have to ask other people. You got to ask people like yourself, Aaron. You got to ask people like myself and say, is this a good place to go? Because you don't know. If I had a kid and I didn't play the sport, I wouldn't know. I'm like, I guess I do that. And you know what? Parents do talk, but not all parents know all the, what's going on behind the scenes and what these coaches are looking for. And the organizer of the showcase or the event, what's their motivation? What are they trying to do?
Right.
I mean, there's so many entities out there. And getting on the right travel team, like you said, or club ball team, is crucial, because that organizer of that team is trying to get their players in front of the right people or go to the right events so they can be seen. So when you pick a team or you're trying to go to a showcase, again, prospect all that information.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where we should wrap it up. And actually, your last point is probably subject for another podcast.
Definitely.
How to vet and find a good travel team, travel organization.
Right.
I don't even want to say the word team.
Right.
Because you need to have somebody who has processes in place, who has a pedigree, and who has a track record for furthering the careers of their athletes.
Right.
Especially if you're going to invest the time and money that it costs nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, Aaron, this is Eric Johnson, the brand.
And Aaron Thigpen, the source.
We'll check you out next time, people.
See ya.